Yes, sir.
How are the mortgage rates looking like?
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne broadcasting live on this Friday morning. We are down at Lake Martin, beautiful Lake Martin, Dadeville, Alabama, with Doug Dean, Frank Duffy, my producer, and squaw wife Audrey here with us, and we have been we've been eating some of this Louisiana lost bread, and get a little shot of that on the camera. This stuff is so good. Every bakery, as every restaurant, as Frank says, in New Orleans, Louisiana, always has fresh bread in the mornings. And tell me, this is the good. Those of you that are out there that are weight conscious, health conscious, trying to lower your waistline, MJ, Cherry, everybody at the Cherry Farm be listening. What are the ingredients in this?
Well, the secret is some evaporated milk. You got to have an egg wash, and you got nutmeg, you got vanilla, you got cinnamon. Oh, and about 3 cups of sugar for the wash.
I wouldn't have told that.
Well, I mean, far be it from anybody here to stray off the low-cal diet, but it is Auburn LSU weekend. It's college football. Doug Dean of the AU Dose is here with me. He has been preparing. Hey, get out of the way, Matt Drudge. He is the advice aggregator for college football for Auburn, but he also covers the big picture. Got a great show lined up. Gordon Ford's going to join us from up in Memphis. Milburn Drysdale's nephew from the Commerce Bank of Beverly Hills. Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville. And then we'll be joined in the second segment by Loran Smith. Quickly, Loran, quickly. What do you got? Well, Larry, we got a great show today, and we're going to talk a lot of college football. All right, 81 seconds left, and we're going to do it now. Give me one more stop, you dogs. One more. All right, top of hour number 2. Bo Carter checks in from the Big 12 office. Formerly of the Big 12 office. He's now a freelancer writer for the National Football Foundation, Baseball Writers of America. And then Ken Capps will join us. He said he's going to be walking around the Texas State Fair in Dallas, right there where the Cotton Bowl is, where next Saturday, the Red River rivalry, the Red River Classic, Oklahoma and Texas will play. So the smell of funnel cakes, corn dogs, and turkey legs is in the air. We'll be with you the next 2 hours talking college football. If that's what you like, you'll love us. Give us a follow on Twitter at @sidelines_live. Doug, you see the background here at Lake Martin. How beautiful is this place?
Well, everyone that's into lake life knows about Lake Martin. And so we're posted. I finally get to put a face with the name of the great Duff, as I've nicknamed the Duffer. And it's just great to host Rob and Audrey, the real brains behind this show, if we're honest, and Duffy at my lake house. We're 30 minutes from the loveliest village, Jordan-Hare Stadium, the site of great agony and pain for LSU tomorrow night. If only I really believe that, Duff.
Yeah, I think the confidence level of the Auburn fan base needs a boost. Maybe some of that lost bread with that sugar in there will get you going. All right, let's get started here. Gordon Ford, Uncle Milburn raised you right. You're in there writing up those mortgages there at First Horizon.
I wish I was writing them up. Rates are too high.
Well, rates. Well, you know what? Right now, the rates may be a little high, but they'll adjust soon. Let's talk some college football, man. All right, tomorrow, 11 a.m., and we talked yesterday about this. Todd Blackledge and Sean McDonough, they're bringing in a couple of A-teamers, A-listers, okay, to broadcast and to be the guys for that game. I was thinking to be a primetime matchup. This is not your father's Ole Miss, and this is a different program now. $1.5 billion just raised for academics, $500 million for athletics. Keith Carter is an RBA as an athletic director. Figure out those initials, and I'll talk to you later. But you know what I mean. Gordon, let's talk about the setting down there in the Grove. You know, it's remarkable. You're old enough to remember when you used to drive down there with your old wood panel station wagon and a cooler full of Ham's beer and chicken on a stick. How cool is it going to be?
Winnebago's in the Grove.
Winnebago's in the Grove. All right. Talk about the Rebels and the Cats tomorrow, and I know it's going to be a big one.
Well, first of all, you know, they finally settled in at quarterback, that being the Rebels. And they've got Jackson Darts in there, and I think he's done an admirable job so far. You know, he's run a lot. And one of the things is a lot of people are noticing that Ole Miss really isn't throwing the ball. They're just running at will. And, you know, they play Kentucky tomorrow, who has been a very good team. And one of the things about Kentucky is it doesn't seem like to me that they've really played anyone yet, and neither is Ole Miss. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think that, you know, Ole Miss being at home, they got a good shot at winning the game. You know, Kentucky's returning Chris Rodriguez, who is their leading rusher. And tomorrow's just like I said, you know, you're going to see a lot of running in that game tomorrow.
Well, we're down here, Lake Martin, and one of Kentucky's running backs who should play a big role tomorrow, Cavassier Smoke, is from Wetumpka. And Doug saw a big sign on the side of the road coming in that said, Cavassier for president. So,
yeah, he's run for 263 yards so far. So, I mean, he's doing a really good job. Smoke is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you know, you've got two Rebel running backs that are
That's right.
Just tearing it up.
Yeah. Frank, I know, you know, you're looking at this, and Jimmy's up there in Knoxville. Tennessee's off this weekend. Frank, you look at this, and Gordon is Mr. Ole Miss Rebel. He's on the Ole Miss Rebel Yell hotline with our friend Yancey Porter, Chuck Roundsville. This is a great show. I love it. Jimmy was on there last week. It is a populist movement. They're all over Sports 56, WHBQ in Memphis, Super Talk, Mississippi. I know you've got some questions on this Kentucky Ole Miss matchup.
Well, I mean, I will disagree with you when you said that Kentucky hadn't played anybody. I think they went down and played a really good game against Florida and really corralled their offense. So, you know, you guys are definitely going to have to run the ball. You've done that. I think y'all are leading the SEC in rushing, I believe. And you're gonna have to continue that. I think your offensive line play has been stellar so far this year, but you're gonna have to continue that. And Kentucky, you know, their defense, they got a quick, you know, defense. They got an attacking defense, and if you guys can control the offensive line, I think you can move the ball on them. But make no mistake, Kentucky's going to be a tough opponent coming in there, and you saw what they went down to the swamp to do, and that is no easy task. And they made Florida look bad, so y'all going to have your hands full. There's no doubt.
Well, there's no doubt that they'll have their hands full. But you know, you look at also, I mean, Ole Miss, their offensive line pass blocking is not doing very good, and they need to, that being Ole Miss, improve their pass blocking to play Kentucky, because, you know, Dart is running too much. I mean, Quinshon Judkins is running for a lot of yards. Zach Evans, who a lot of people think, you know, he could be in the first round draft. I mean, he's 369 yards, and he's kind of got hurt a little bit. But, you know, Kentucky, I mean, Will Levis, I mean, they've got him listed like top 7 players taken. So, yeah, Kentucky is and, you know, Stoops, he's always has great defense. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a great game.
Gordon, this is Doug Dean. I hope you're well, and that's going to be a heck of a game to tune into early in the game. I got to say, and I'm curious your thoughts, it shows great maturation and impulse control as a play caller that Lane Kiffin is. He sees what he can do running the ball, and he's committing to that. That's impressive.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, they are a running team now. It's not like when Levy was there. You know, of course, Charlie Weiss Jr., and I don't think he calls many of the plays, but when Levy was there, they were all over the place, you know, with Matt Corral throwing it. And, you know, I just don't think that they have that confidence, and Dart hasn't picked that system up where they can throw it. I mean, Dart is a talent. I mean, he can throw the ball, he can run, he's physical, he's 6'3", 220. But, you know, Quinshon Judkins, I mean, he is a a freshman is like a man right now. And also Zach Evans. I mean, they've got a lot of good running backs. Jonathan Mingo is a deep threat for them, but really they haven't thrown deep a lot.
Gordon, Yancey Porter talks with us a lot. You got 13, 14 defensive linemen on that Ole Miss team. They've seen 25 snaps or more. That is depth. You got to go back 30 years. Norman Hand, Tim Bowens. He flew in on weekends for the games. As far as going to class, I can't vouch for that. And Dwayne Dotson, Cassius Ware. I mean, that 92 Ole Miss defense was, the guns in Averone. They were tough. How good is this Ole Miss defense compared to what they were last year? And Jimmy had talked so much about DJ Durkin in year 2, and if they could be 35 or 40% better, could win 9 or 10 games. That's what happened. Is this Ole Miss defense potentially better late season as they play more games?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they got Pegues, who was out last week. Auburn transfer, Tavarius Robinson, who's a big defensive end. I mean, defensively, and Corey Coleman did not play last week either, who's one of their leading tacklers. And Austin Keys at linebacker. They've got a slew of players, more players than I think I've seen them in a long time. I mean, they got Tywan Malone, who's a 4-star recruit. I mean, and he's a backup player. And the depth that they've had is incredible. I mean, this is the most depth I have ever seen on an Ole Miss defensive team.
Frank Duffy again here. And by the way, you guys did that last year. You improved as the year went on. That defense got, by game 5 or 6, I mean, they were improving every week. And I see that again this year.
Yeah, they have. And, Chris Partridge, I mean, he has done an incredible job as defensive coordinator. One of the other things about him is he is a tremendous recruiter. I mean, he's getting all sorts of players to come in there. And, this isn't the Ole Miss of old. It's kind of different down there. I mean, you think about it overall, the athletic department. I mean, basketball was a little bit down last year, but they're number 13 in the country in recruiting right now. And they've got a lot of guys coming back, some transfers coming in. I think Ole Miss basketball will be better, but they won the World Series in baseball. Football's improving, track and all that's doing a good job. Overall, I mean, if you look at the rankings of schools, they're high up. And Keith Carter has done a tremendous job there building that athletic program.
No doubt.
You just look at it overall, like you just kind of mentioned. I mean, Ole Miss is, they're loaded for bear, man. I mean, they could win 9 or 10 games or maybe more.
Hey, with y'all's national championship in baseball, it's y'all's world. We're just living in it. Hey, Jimmy, you were talking about Ole Miss last week on the show, again, talking about that defense. And you said that it was going to be a big test that they're going to have with Smoke and Levis and that offense coming in. What do you see about the game today?
Well, I just think overall, Ole Miss has to focus on playing 4 quarters because that offense went scoreless in the second half. They scored 28 points in the second quarter. And, in this type of game where you got 2 really good teams, you can't have that type of drought and expect to come out on top. And there's some different intangibles involved in this game. This is going to be the season debut for Chris Rodriguez. We're going to see if he's going to be able just to step right in and play as if he hadn't missed any games at all, or if it's going to take some time for him to adjust, maybe a quarter, maybe later in the first half. You just don't know at what point in time he's going to feel really comfortable, in his ability to be a big factor in a game like this. And we've mentioned, Smoke's been a really good player for them. So they got a really good 1-2 punch there at running back. And we know Kentucky over the last 3 or 4 years has been a legitimate SEC line of scrimmage roster. They're strong up front on both sides of the ball. And I think they're going to try to establish the run game themselves. So I see that as a very interesting matchup. And yeah, Ole Miss, the depth they have up front defensively is nothing like we can remember for really decades. So they're playing with a lot of confidence. And I think both sides are going to try to establish the running game. And then that brings up the question of who is more successful with their passing game, because Ole Miss has had no reason to really venture out into anything exotic as far as their passing game goes, because if your running game's been working, you don't want to show all these SEC opponents you're going to see later in the season anything that maybe you've been working on that hasn't showed up on tape so far, and just kind of springing on them when they play those SEC teams later on. So we're going to see how that passing game has developed. As Gordon mentioned, Mingo has far and away been the star in the receiving corps. Ole Miss really has to have somebody step up besides him. And the Kentucky receiving corps, those young players are really starting to come into their own. So I think it's just a fascinating matchup.
One of the things is, too, Jimmy, Will Levis has already thrown for almost 1,200 yards in 4 games. I mean, he's doing a heck of a job there.
Hey, one thing with both of y'all, Will Levis, and he does have a strong arm, but Hendon Hooker's a better quarterback. Bryce Young's a better quarterback. And my man Stetson Bennett IV is a better quarterback. And I think that shows you the depth. Coming into the season, 12 of the 14 SEC schools had a returning starter. Auburn has the Vulcan. I mean, TJ Finley. Of course, he's not playing right now. But he's doing a great job of imitating that statue up on the mountain by the club in Birmingham. But anyway, yes. But we're gonna do this here. We're broadcasting live from Lake Martin. Doug Deans, Frank Duffy, my wife Audrey, Gordon Ford, Jimmy Hodge, college football rapid fire roundtable on this Friday. It is the week 5 of the college football season, folks. It's hard to beat this, and we're going to talk more about it after this quick break. Everybody listening, Kicks 96.3 on Lake Martin. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Again, beautiful Lake Martin in the background. Doug went out during the break and caught a 8-pound striper. 8-pound striper. Frank's gutting it right now. It's going to be blackened striper. I got to say this too, man. I was telling him about some of our all Cajun name team up at the Cherry Farm. MJ, if you're listening, you know what I'm talking about. Tanner Smith and Blake Kleinpeter. Come on, man. Broussard, Gajon. Give me some more Cajun names.
Rosclair, Richard, Gautreau.
Hey, Boudreaux. Yeah, I met him at the bowling alley last night. All right. Gordon Ford's with us up in Memphis. Milburn Drysdale's nephew at the bank. Jimmy Hodge in Knoxville. As he prepares, he's going to turn pro in the Pro Bowlers Tour after the show. But, Doug, I know you got some more questions for Gordon Ford on this Ole Miss Kentucky game.
Well, leave it to an Auburn fan to introduce a very triggering angle on this Ole Miss Kentucky game. Gordon, don't get mad at me, man. The first round will be on me when I see you. But could this possibly be an audition for a short list of Auburn coaching candidates if there should become a vacancy? I'll say this: I think Lane Kiffin can do everything he wants right there at Ole Miss. NIL and the portal is changing everything. I'm not sure. I think Mark Stoops, after all, Kentucky's now a football school, right? According to Calipari. But I don't know if Mark Stoops probably has to keep an eye out for making a move while he can. But your thoughts on that aspect of the coaching carousel, Gordon?
No, that's a good point. I mean, first of all, Kiffin made a comment about 3 weeks ago at a press conference that he's very happy at Ole Miss and that he's got all of the people there treating him right, and he loves the people there, and his daughters moved there and all that kind of thing. But then again, people say that stuff in book. Mark Stoops, Kentucky, I would think that they would look at him, but I don't think he's going to leave there. Man, you've got no pressure. You're going to win 10 games a year. You got a 12-game playoff now. And, I mean, there's also talk about him at Nebraska. I mean, I don't think he's going to take either one of those jobs, to be quite honest. I mean, he doesn't have a great deal of pressure at Kentucky. He gets paid a lot of money. And I don't know if you've been to Lexington, man. It's a nice place to live.
It sure is.
It is. He's from Youngstown, Ohio. He's now the winningest football coach in Kentucky history. His brother, Bobby Stoops, is the winningest coach in Oklahoma history. Their mom goes to bed at night. Wow, that's a hell of a feeling. She's done something right. I guess all those TV dinners and Mrs. Paul's fish sticks paid off. Jimmy, Gordon's making points. I know in the past, Tommy Tuberville was not ever going to leave Oxford except in a pine box. And he left. But I think Lane Kiffin absolutely loves Ole Miss. And you look around this league, nobody wants to give anybody any time anymore, do they?
Well, it just depends. I mean, Gordon has told me that another reason that Kiffin wouldn't be in any hurry to go anywhere is because, he's making a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
And I don't even know that anybody else could maybe pay him more what he's already making at Ole Miss right now.
Yeah.
And he's basically the king of the roost, in Oxford. I mean, he's turned everything
can do what he
around.
wants.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they play usually an exciting brand of football, but offensively, since what they've been doing so far has been working, there's no reason to make any changes. I mean, until somebody shows they can stop that running game, you just need to keep doing it. But, again, with that running game working, it's going to present a lot of opportunities for the passing game if you keep forcing opponents to put 8 guys in the box, to stop it. So, but no, Stoops also is in a great situation. I think he's making $6 million. He gets an automatic raise every year. And as long as Cal is still marinating on that St. Peter's loss, I think you can call Kentucky a football school for right now.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I mean, Stoops knew he had all the leverage when they were having that exchange, and his timing was absolutely perfect. And you always like to see a little intrigue, at certain places where you can't imagine basketball being anything but the top dog 365 days a year. And it's just been amazing to see what Stoops has been able to do there. But again, this matchup is it's just one of those games where you just want the kickoff to come here, to arrive, so that we can just see what happens once these teams go at it, because the matchups, I think, are just tremendous. And in a lot of ways, you just don't know until they line up and start playing.
Yeah, great point,
Rob,
Jimmy.
can I say something about that
Yeah.
real quick? People talk about all these people going to leave their schools in the SEC, et cetera. Maybe the guy at Vanderbilt, okay? But overall, who can outpay the SEC? When Oklahoma and Texas come in there, with the exception of maybe USC, and I think Miami's paying Cristobal like $8 million, who can outpay the SEC? And I'm just going to leave it on that.
Well, Gordon, what it
And
really gets down to,
excuse me, let me reiterate that.
it's not who can pay, it's who's willing to pay. Because the Big Ten up there, you think about your typical Big Ten fan, some guy that looks like Archie Bunker, with some Earth shoes and some white socks and some Sansabelt slacks and old Madras plaid shirt, sitting there drinking some Croydon beer. Come on, Buckeyes, come on.
Not a subtle point you're making, right?
No, well, but people in the South are just better looking. You got a lot of money, and the weather's better. I mean, a lot of those chicks up there, man, they go to the football game, they just put on a sweatshirt, no makeup. And you women down here, in Mississippi, you go to an Ole Miss game, holy shnikes, man. I mean, Gordon, I know you're about to have to get back to work, but is there anything better? I'm getting you all excited now. Just describe what the Grove will be like. Some poor guy that's living up in Athens, Ohio, pulling for the Buckeyes, and he's going up there, and there are a bunch of 100,000 plus people there wearing sweatshirts and warm up pants like on the Seinfeld episode. George, you've given up. You ordered warm up pants, but talk about that fashion show. And I'll never forget as a young boy being down at the beach, and my dad and I were all sitting down there, and this woman's walking down the beach, most beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my life. My dad goes, boy, she's a Miss Mississippi and then Miss America, Linda Shea. I'm like, holy cow. Hey, there's something in the water down there, Gordon. Isn't it a great place to go on a Saturday or any day of the week?
Oh, no doubt. When I was there was Miss American runner-up Miss America. So
well, not shabby.
Women there. That's like an 83 or 4. But yeah, it's incredible. I mean, you notice it every weekend, and you come down there and hang out sometime, Rob.
Yeah, well, hey, Gordon, there was a time during I think an ABC broadcast a number of years ago. I forgot who was announcing the game, but he noted that Ole Miss red shirts Miss Americas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
you can't.
So anyway, no, it's really an experience to go down there to the Grove, and then you talk about everything in the SEC just seems to be bigger and better. And I know you remember 3 or 4 years ago where one SEC player at SEC Media Day said that even the toilet paper's thicker.
I don't know about that now, but yeah.
Yeah, when he said it, though, I mean, it made national waves for a couple of days, because the SEC Media Days in itself is just, it really marks the beginning of college football season because it's a 4-day event. And what's so awesome about it is that all 4 days are needed to really give an accurate preview of the upcoming season that each individual coach can provide. And then there's plenty of time for media fireworks, stupid questions, and then a monster development or two, as experienced last year by that announcement, I guess on Wednesday afternoon, that Texas and Oklahoma had asked to be admitted into the league.
When A&M was at the podium. Good timing.
Yeah, what a coincidence. Yeah. And then you have amazing coincidences.
Gordon, Jimmy, had you completed that thought, Jimmy?
I have completed that thought. I think I made the gamut on it.
Great, fantastic take. Gordon, I never thought I would say this, but there is a potential candidate out there for, be it Georgia Tech or Auburn, if I think it's when, not if, a vacancy emerges on the plains. But I never thought I would be saying that there's a slightly sexier announcement of a coaching candidate, just slightly surpassing the electric Lane Kiffin, who sucks all the airwaves out of social media. You never get coach speak from Lane Kiffin. But I speak, obviously, of primetime Deion Sanders. That would be the biggest high-risk hire, in my humble opinion. But I have to also footnote that if it blew up and worked, we know it would work in recruiting, but if he could assemble a staff, somebody's going to take a chance on him. It's high risk. I don't think at Auburn we're in a position to be that high risk, but that would be a little bit sexier presser, if you will, even than a great Lane Kiffin.
I don't know. I mean, of course, people will get fired up, but then again, look at where he's at. It's easy to win there, with the players he can get. I mean, he's getting, NIL players at where he's at, and I just don't know. I don't know. I mean, I've been hearing that people talked about him at Nebraska. Nebraska, I do not think they will hire him. I've been hearing Dan Mullen going somewhere, and he was a good coach. It just didn't work out for him at Florida, so he'll end up somewhere. But you're probably right. Someone will, and you could probably see someone like Arizona State hiring him. So I don't know if Georgia Tech hires him. Then again, they could. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, you got to
fired
imagine
their
Tom.
AD, so you don't know who's coming in there.
No.
Yeah, Gordon, you got to imagine Tom Herman's going to end up somewhere too.
Yeah, eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
Tom Herman, a lot of people are saying Matt Rule could get fired or step down from the Panthers, and he could go to one of these schools. So, it's going to be interesting to see who fills some of these vacancies.
Well, Gordon, look, we got to get ready. We got Loran Smith about to call in from Athens. Actually, he's on his way to Columbia with Georgia. He flies in style, buddy. I'm Robin Leach. We're flying with Loran Smith, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. It's the dog walk with Loran Smith. Quickly, Loran, quickly. Hey, tell people how they can follow you on Monday nights on the Rebel Yell hotline. And then let's do this again next week. Great stuff, Gordon. Thanks for your being on here with us on this Friday morning.
Rebel Yell hotline. I don't have the symbol there because nobody's ever asked me for it. But, we are the largest, most popular show in the state of Mississippi.
Well, I love it. I love it. Congratulations. And I know afterwards you always go do some good studying at the library.
Again, Rob, I'm one of the founders of Sidelines. Maybe I'll get some more time again.
Well, we've been doing it. We've been doing it since 1988. Remember with the days with Weinberger? And he literally had the coat hanger on the thing so we could do the show.
I'm perfectly fine now.
All right. Gordon, we'll call you later today. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Great
Thanks,
stuff
guys.
with Gordon.
Have a good show.
Gordon comes in. I love him. He'll come into the studio and he'll have on like a trench coat with an old reporter's hat and a notebook, stack of books, newspapers, coffee, forgets to turn the ringer off. I mean, he's McGruff. Take a bite out of the show. Jimmy, you're up in Knoxville. Yeah. Yeah. I hope everything's good up there in Knoxville. And I tell you what, I love this college football this time of year. We got the three of us down here with the lake in the background.
Don't forget Bailey.
And Bailey the dog. Bailey's a beautiful yellow lab, weighs about 50 pounds. She's in here wanting to talk some football. Dog Talk will be on in just a minute. Now, is there a more beautiful dog in the world than a bulldog? I don't know, but I tell you what. Audrey says there is. Oh, Delta. Yeah. Delta says, don't forget me. But interesting take on that, man. I mean, Deion Sanders. I'm with Frank. And
Georgia Tech is where he lands. His connection with Atlanta.
Yeah.
He goes to the ACC. He starts recruiting back in Georgia. He could bring pro talent to that coaching staff. I think it is a perfect fit. If they're smart on the flats, now that they've got that opening, I think they do everything they can to bring Deion into the city, into a true 404 makeover. And I think he would do absolutely fantastic. And it's kind of the anti Paul Johnson Collins era. And I think it'd be a great hire.
Maybe relax admissions standards a little bit for the cause.
No calculus.
Yeah, why not? Those nerds over there can let football players study something besides engineering, surely.
Yeah, look, I was a freshman at Auburn, and I had a class called Introduction to Philosophical Problems, and I had to go tell the professor like 9 days into the class. It was spring quarter. I had to go. I inherited the sleeping narcolepsy from my father, and I literally had to go to him. I said, "Sir," I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but I said, I can't stay awake in your class. And so he moved me to another class, and I went into this other guy that looked like John Candy. He was great. He had a bowl cut, man. And I saw the professor. I was out at the Wendy's that was over on Magnolia in Auburn, and I saw him, and I had my plate with all my food, a bowl of chili and everything. And someone bumped into me, and my plate fell all over my teacher's lap. But I passed the class, and I stayed awake in his class.
But here's the thing. But don't forget. Think of the recruiting that Chan Gailey And George O'Leary did it. Georgia Tech. They can get talent. They got Calvin Johnsons. They can get this NFL type caliber. And I think Deion could absolutely go in there and rejuvenate that Georgia Tech fan base, which desperately needs it. They need an overhaul on their facilities at Bobby Dodd. But there's no reason why Georgia Tech can't be fielding a good team. There's just absolutely no reason at all.
Well, you talk about tradition. 4 or 5 national championships, a bunch of SEC titles, I think 6. They won some ACC titles. Bobby Ross came there in 1990, VMI graduate. You can win at Georgia Tech. We're about to go to a break. We're going to come back. Loran Smith is wrapping up a radio show. He's on a lot of them. But I think Atlanta, someone like Deion Sanders, who played for the Falcons, played for the Braves, who will ever forget his locker room joust with Tim McCarver during the World Series. And Tim, a CBHS alumnus of my high school from Memphis, the McCarver family, like the Canale family. The Canale family, there may not be another family like him in America. In one Canale family alone, there were 4 boys that all played in the NFL. I think the toughest man I've ever known in my life as a coach and all would be Billy Canale. We're going to do this. Loran Smith is on with us right now. We're going to take a quick commercial break, come back with the man, one of our favorites, a legend, Loran Smith, after this quick break on Sidelines Friday.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
We are back live sidelines on this Friday from Lake Martin, down here in beautiful Lake Martin, Dadeville, Alabama, at the home of Doug Dean, Frank Duffy. Frank has been making us Louisiana Lost bread. Last night, all night long, he was working on his gumbo. And this didn't you go to the store and get some stuff in the frozen food section, throw it in the microwave. This is like watching Paul Sorvino and the boys when they were in prison making spaghetti, finally slicing and dicing. Now, let me tell you something. Loran Smith is on with us right now, one of our favorite people, long time, 50 years now, part of the Georgia Football Network, proud native son of Wrightsville, Georgia. Shares that hometown with another Georgia legend, Herschel Walker, who, by the way, Loran Smith told the Georgia coaches about him before anybody knew about him. So give Loran Smith credit for discovering talent. He was kind of like Sam Phillips, who recorded Elvis's records there, and Dewey Phillips, who played the first one on WHBQ. Loran Smith, you've been working on a book talking about Georgia's national championship team last year. And I said the other day to some folks that cover Georgia on here with us too, I said, I told Tony Barnhart this. I said, Tony, I think our friend Loran Smith's going to be holed up in places like Sea Island and St. Simons again next year doing another book. But Loran, welcome to Sidelines. And I'm not going to say quickly. I'm going to say at your leisure. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Well, delighted to be back with you, Rob. I finally got this book under control, just a few odds and ends. But the publisher has the manuscript, and I'll have to worry about a sidebar too. But essentially, the deed is done. I'm over with the stress, and I'm delighted about that. I had to go through hernia surgery and bad sinus infection last weekend. So I'm feeling good. And if I were going to complain, all I got to do is let the news images of those poor folks in Florida, the devastation they went through. So if it's not raining here, it has rained where it's a problem, and I feel for those folks. But I'm feeling good. Happy to be back with you, and happy to have an opportunity to talk Georgia football with you, SEC football, or whatever's on your mind.
Loran, this is Doug Dean. I'm glad you're on the mend, and I'm one of those Auburn guys, but I wanted to see if maybe there's a way we can get enough positive COVID tests for our Auburn that we could just skip that game in a week, if you know what I mean. I'm just got to be honest with you, but specific to the Georgia Bulldogs, and congrats on a long-awaited and well-deserved national championship. We could be seeing the same exact scenario play out as the season winds down. My question to you is, because my untrained eye struggles to find any flaws on this Georgia team, are you seeing, and what would Kirby and the staff say they want to get better at? I'm just not seeing a lot of flaws anywhere. Where would you attack Georgia if you were trying to pull off the monster upset?
Well, if Kirby were here, you'd be leaning backwards like some of those palm trees in Florida. He can tell you right away that there's some weak areas where we're not playing as well as we should. But that's the good fortune of having a little schedule opportunity thus far that will put him in the position he and his staff are trying to strengthen some areas which are weak. What happens is, over the long season, you lose enough players to where you get down to where you're playing with a bare minimum. That's what usually happens to a defending national championship team in its efforts to repeat. We don't have any major weaknesses, but we also are not invincible. I don't think anybody would think in those terms. I do like our offense. They've got a fine offensive line, got a good quarterback, and a system that's working for him. An unsung hero at Georgia is the offensive coordinator. He is Todd Monken. It's amazing how he gets people open for passing opportunities. And then the defense, while it's talented, is really young. So we do have good strengths on both sides of the ball. But nobody's going to go out there and roll over and say, here, beat up on us. We want to make it easy for you. Nobody takes that position. They take position more. We can get a break or two here. We can beat these guys. I mean, I watched it up close in 1981. I guess it was, in 1980, the 80 season. Nebraska and Miami met in the Orange Bowl. And I watched Howard Snellenberger and the Miami coaches. I watched them work a little bit and saw where they said, we can beat these guys. Nebraska's supposed to be the team of the century. Of course, to Nebraska's credit, they came back after getting down and felt like they should have won. It was a pass, 2-point conversion. Tom Osborne never batted an eye when he had an opportunity to kick for what would have probably won him a national championship. And I later asked him why he had no reluctance to call for the 2 points. And he says, "Well, I think if you are true to your profession, to the kids, you play to win." He says, "I didn't want to back into it by tying a game." He says, "I wouldn't have voted for Nebraska to be number one." So anyway, I'm just saying that nobody's invincible, and I think that's the thing that I admire about Kirby. He works so hard to make sure that his team is aware that you're not invincible, and if you prepare, you got a chance to win them all. But you got to prepare and be ready to play.
Loran, last year you and I talked about it ad nauseum. Stetson Bennett IV, Blackshear, Georgia, another South Georgia guy, small town, loves hunting and fishing. There's something to that. Buckbaloo, South Georgia. You got to spend some time in writing this book with Stetson. Coming into this season, there were still Georgia fans who said, "Hey, we've got 4- and 5-star quarterbacks on that roster. Why are we playing this guy?" And I'm sitting here going, you can't measure heart. You cannot measure soul. You cannot measure passion of a guy that was told, go away, went to a junior college, came back last year in the preseason. Maybe you ought to focus on your studies. What are you majoring in? But he refused to use it. He used the word impossible as motivation to prove everybody wrong, but not so much that, but to prove himself right. He's one of the good stories in college football. I thought coming into this season, he would be asked to win 2 or 3 games because Georgia lost a lot on the defense. But that defense is stronger than 50 acres of fresh cut onions, okay? They're good. Stetson in that first game against Oregon, 383 yards, 4 touchdowns. I think he's better, and I think you're right. Todd Monken is going to make a hell of a football coach as a head coach for somebody. But while he's at Georgia, the marriage of those two is the best I've ever seen at Georgia.
Well, you make great points there. And of course, I say to the critic, some people can't be happy under any circumstances, but the critics, any critics of a guy that wins the championship be like somebody finding fault with Miss America. In fact, I think if I remember Don Meredith said about Tom Landry, if he married Raquel Welch, he'd expect her to cook. So these guys who are criticizing Stetson Bennett, they carve about the perfect plate of food.
Loran, it's Frank Duffy. Again, being in Atlanta like I am, I've got a lot of Georgia buddies. I follow obviously Georgia very closely. It's frankly, I love watching them in the East, and since my team LSU's in the West, what they say in The Godfather, since my business interests don't conflict with yours, I'm okay with that. But I will tell you, I thought Georgia's offense had room to improve over last year's. But what I was really shocked about this year is, as well as Georgia is playing on defense, might be better than what is a lifetime defense that y'all had winning a national championship. And those kids are playing as well or better than that squad last year. Can you speak to the pleasant surprise that I'm sure Georgia fans have and the program for what that defense is doing again this year?
Well, Kirby said back in the spring after the draft, he said, look, these kids are good. So we're going to go to war with some capable and talented players. They're just green. And he has addressed that constantly, that these players, while they're not anything like what we lost, they're capable. They're talented, but they're just green. But they're getting better. He's done a good job of playing second and third teamers all season, all fall thus far. And then, of course, I think we're the same as so many other colleges, and particularly you see it in the pros. Young kids who are really talented, they get to play early on because they play on special teams.
Yeah.
They put them out there, and then they get in a few snaps at a regular position. So it's not like the cupboard was bare when the spring's fall started. We do have very good talent, and Kirby has been upfront about that, dating all the way back to February.
We were talking about that this morning over coffee, and Jimmy, we wish you were here, brother. I'm gonna save some lost bread for you. I'm gonna package it up and send it up to Kville for you. But I got to ask you, Jimmy, being the Alabama guy, you obviously see what Kirby is creating in Athens. He's creating a beast that Saban has created at Tuscaloosa. Can you speak, Jimmy, to what you see of how Kirby is following in the GOAT's footsteps and how he's putting that program together?
To a T. I mean, he's followed the process on a scale of 1 to 10 to a 12, and he's put together a coaching staff that really works well together, and they mesh with Kirby's philosophies, and they communicate well with the players. But I was going to ask Loran, although he was a freshman, I didn't think, you could find a tight end better than Brock Bowers. But so far it looks like the sophomore Brock Bowers is better than what we saw last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they're running this guy on jet sweeps now, and he's running 70 yards for touchdowns. And I mean, this is just one of the best college football players I've seen in decades. And Kirby's just able to bring in players of this caliber that are not only great individual players, but they appear to be great teammates. They play really well together as a unit. And Loran, you mentioned it, but last week against Kent State, the first thing the national media wanted to do was jump on the fact that the Dogs struggled. But Kirby in the post-game press conference seemed almost relieved that his team had hit a speed bump. They got challenged a little bit, and he was very happy with the way a lot of his younger players kind of responded to a challenge. And that's what great coaches do. They find teaching moments basically out of every game, no matter what outsiders might think of how the game went.
Well, the attitude that Kirby has is you didn't play your best, but you played a team that played near its best. So it was a good test. Glad you had that experience, but just realize it's going to get tougher. And you've got to be ready to play every week. Now, coaches preach that all the time, because if you can get the mental right, you're not going to often lose. And I don't think I've ever mentioned this to you guys, but I was having breakfast. I never will forget it, at the Sheraton Lemoyne Hotel in New Orleans one spring day with Bill Yeoman, the old coach at Houston.
Yeah.
And we were talking, and he says, I wouldn't walk across the street to hear Bear Bryant lecture on football. At first, I was taken aback. I thought he's been disrespectful. He said, but I'd get on my hands and knees right this minute and crawl to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, if I could find out what he gets in his kid's head the day they play a football game. So that's what Saban has always done. That's what Kirby is doing. That's what Coach Bryant did, and other great coaches. You've got to take care of the mental, and it's never easy, and the job is never finished.
Loran, that's something Jackie Sherrill was on the show. Jimmy and I had him on several times this last few months. And he said, Coach Bryant didn't really spend a lot of time with X's and O's, but he knew how to get to every player in that locker room individually, not just a cookie cutter approach. And he said it was about life. Think about Vince Dooley, about Shug Jordan, Charlie McClendon. Think about General Nealon. These great ones. And you are what I call part of the patriarchy of Southern college football. Claude Felton, David Housel, the late Buddy Davidson, Haywood Harris, Bud Ford, Ron Higgins' father down at LSU, Herb Vincent. You all tell these stories that connect us to the past, the present, and the future. And it's priceless. That story you just told about Bill Yeoman's, I still remember the 1973 Veer Houston offense, and Auburn beat them, and it set off a massive explosion. People were just, how Auburn beat them, and you can't get that anywhere else. So thank you. So keep going.
Well, I just think that it's always been that way. Newt Rockness speeches, we've heard about those for years and years. So getting the kids ready to play is as important mentally as it is physically.
Yeah. And just as you said, I love watching a coach like Kirby Smart. I think a team that wins easily every week is like a kid that's the recipient of a trust fund who's never worked. He's born on third base and thought he hit a triple. Kirby's brilliant. Saban's brilliant at taking moments where they struggle and using those as opportunities to get better. And I think that's absolutely the essence of great coaches. And he probably has a list of the top guys at every position, offense and defense and special teams in the country, if he needs to make a replacement. And that right there is why he's winning. He's played for the national championship twice in his first 6 years.
And you know there was coaching going on from the SEC championship game to that national championship game. That was coaching. That was a month long of going into those kids' ears.
Yeah, it was. Loran, we're going to take a quick commercial break, come back for a couple more minutes with you. Great stuff. This is Loran Smith. I want you to talk about your book, possibly when it's going to be released, and don't get too comfortable because I think you're going to be writing again. I'm just saying. But Sidelines will be right back with you from Lake Martin, Alabama on a beautiful Friday.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to GE Patterson and BBG for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Browne back here with you on this Friday, week 5 of college football season. Loran Smith on with us on the way to Columbia. The Dogs and the Missouri Tigers will play this weekend. Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville. I'm here on beautiful Lake Martin. Doug Dean, Frank Duffy cooking up lost bread. We've got, is that gumbo you're making? Frank's special gumbo. I got 6 slabs of ribs that MJ smoked on the big black barrel. Yeah, that's right. And I'll say that Loran Smith, a couple of minutes before you go, Bo Carter is also on the line with us for the next segment. You may have known him, the former SID at Mississippi State, member of the.
Yeah, I remember Bo.
Yeah, hey, say hello to Bo.
Hi, Bo. Great to hear you.
Where
are you living these days? Tell me where Bo's living these days.
In beautiful Dallas, I'm right there with your friend Steve Hetchel and Matthew Son from the Football Foundation. So we're having a good time.
Yeah, well, I expect to see them in November and had a conversation with each of them yesterday.
Good. I'm glad they're still at work. That's good.
Hey, Loran, I'm going to tell you what. Having, by the way, before we came on the air this morning, as Frank was making that lost bread in the kitchen here, I said, back when America was more of a man's country, Friday night Dean Martin roast, and I pulled up on YouTube Foster Brooks roasting Don Rickles. I mean, that's what it's like when we get these legends like you, Loran Smith, Bo Carter, Ken Capps on here. This is just solid rock gold. Loran, tell people about your book that you're writing, because I've already got, Loran, what do you got? I'm reading that. I love to read it. It's in there in the den at the Cherry Farm in the main den. I love it. My friend Paul Wickenheiser is listening right now out in Reno, Nevada. He gets up early in the morning, going out splitting wood or whatever he does in the desert. But he is a lifelong dog. So is Jeff Boone and a lot of my good friends, Robert Durham, John Hearn. Talk about that book and when people can get their hands on it.
Well, it'll be out next spring. I don't have a target date. Books like this are usually coffee table style books like this. Usually printed in Asia somewhere. So you have to have it. You have to have a lot of time to get all the production done and get all the photos organized, and so that's why it takes so long to print it, because it's printed in Asia because it's much cheaper. So it'll be out next spring. I don't have a target date just yet. All I know is I'm finished with the manuscript, and that's going to be next weekend. I'm going to have a 2-bottle celebration. I can't celebrate this weekend. I'm on the road, but next weekend I'm going to have a 2-bottle celebration that I finished.
Loran, you did the 2 tough things that come with writing. You started it and you finished it. That's the 2 things.
That's right.
Man, is that Buddy?
Hey, Doug Dean just bought your book and online while we're talking here. And you know what it is, Loran? You write this book about football stories, and you write about life, about your travels abroad. And I still watch every night Andy Griffith episodes. And you and David Housel, his book From the Back Booth at Chappie's, your book, Loran, what do you got? What do you got, Loran? Quickly. Well, they're in Georgia struggling out here today, but Herschel, I think, is getting lathered up pretty good. And once he gets it going, then nobody can stop him. But and I'm telling y'all, Loran Smith, you're why we love college football. We got to get you back on. We love having you on every week if you can do it regularly. But you're a gift to college football because you connect us and you make us love the sport, and you remind us about sportsmanship. And life's all about relationships, and we're just proud to have you on here.
Well, I'm proud to be with you, Rob. Sounds like you got a great pregame meal cooking there. And, wish you guys the best. Have a great weekend.
It's going to be wild, and we'll talk to you in this coming week. Okay.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, thank you so much. Loran Smith gets up I'll get text from him 4:30 Central Time, 5:30 in the morning. He's already up walking. Knocking out. He had that hernia surgery, sinus infection. He's tough as a $3 steak at CK's at 3 a.m. Bo Carter, proud son of Sheffield, Alabama. Name me the other 3 cities of the Quad Cities of Alabama, and I'll buy you a steamer pack of Crystal. No, the Quad Cities: Florence, Muscle Shoals, Tuscumbia, and Sheffield. All right, Bo Carter, former SID at Mississippi State. Bo, you're out there, and I gotta say it. The Metroplex, Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, whatever. There's some, I know, I hate that. I do hate that term. Meteorologist Bo Carter here with the weather for the Metroplex this weekend. Going to be partly sunny, hotter than hail, and same thing for the next 10 days. So I'm just going to take off. But let's talk some college football.
Ken can verify. I think it's 80. High today is 81 degrees, low of 52. So we finally got football weather. Man,
hey, you get your sweaters out because yeah, it's state fair time. I know Ken Capps is going to be calling in here shortly. He's walking around right now. The aroma of turkey legs, funnel cakes, corn dogs, all that good health food. What's going on out there in Texas and the Big 12 country? Because we're looking college football. All those people that said the interest was waning, people would stay home in their man caves. That's a complete lie. You can watch the food shows on TV, but nothing beats eating at Commander's Palace with a good glass of wine or a cold beer, does it? Talk about that football out there in Texas.
That's for sure. And shameless plug here, Rob, I'm actually going to be in Starkville next week to speak to the Starkville Quarterback Club on Thursday. And my wife and I are going to take in the Mississippi State Arkansas Slugfest Saturday. So there'll be some good fights in the stands, a lot of pork grilling and all kinds of fun over there.
There's no love lost when that maroon but
football out here is really a big one tomorrow. TCU hosting Oklahoma, and really some great ball games going on.
Bo, good morning. This is Doug Dean with out of Birmingham, and Frank Duffy and I are having a lot of fun here, getting fired up about LSU Auburn. It doesn't have the fervor that we're used to a lot of years, and everyone can guess why. And that's Auburn's not holding up its end of the deal, which strangely is both teams are 3-1. It just doesn't feel that way. I'd like your take, because you're certainly qualified, maybe overqualified, to talk about Mississippi State and the resurgent Bulldogs. I think they got a loaded team. They ran like we'll probably do tomorrow night in Auburn. Ran into an ascendant LSU program. They look like the LSU of old under Brian Kelly. But do you think Mike Leach and the State fan base overall is happy with the progress as we speak, and what should we look for from that team looking at the rest of their schedule?
That's a good question. They took a little step back at the end of the season with the Liberty Bowl. I think they had 18 players that either transferred or decided to opt out for NFL reasons. So but they got a big win out at Arizona the other day. You hit the nail on the head. LSU's defense is so much better this year than the last couple of years, and they really shut Will Rogers down that one ball game. So the LSU. One thing about the LSU Auburn game, the Tigers will win. You know, that's what we used to always say back in the day. But that I could see like the LSU Auburn game maybe like a 21-17 or 17-14. Those teams will really battle it out tomorrow.
Well, it's almost like Auburn got a football lobotomy, like Chief put the pillow over their head. But I just think about this. I go back in comparison to where Auburn fans, the last time Auburn fans went into an LSU game with less confidence was the 2012 team, which was the worst Auburn football team since 1950, when Auburn went 0-10. As my dad said, as a freshman at Auburn, Earl Browne was the coach. He was a fine, good-looking man, Notre Dame graduate, fine man, but he couldn't coach his way out of a paper sack. Auburn lost to Wofford that year, okay? They hired Shug Jordan, and they celebrated on the lawn of the president's house, across from the KA house. My dad and Dr. Martin, everybody had a great time doing that. But I want to tell you, 2012, remember what happened? Auburn played LSU off their feet and went down to a 12-10 ending. So maybe that's what happens. Maybe Auburn can win 13-12. I don't know. But I think LSU with Brian Kelly. Jimmy, talk about this. Come in here, this conversation with Bo Carter. But you're a big Brian Kelly fan, and why not? The guy's won 266 football games. Nick Saban's won 270. He's the second winningest active coach in college football. What's not to like about that, Jimmy?
Well, not a lot, but before I talk about Brian Kelly, hey, Bo, I just wanted to go back to your prediction of a possible score in the 21-17 range. Well, let me tell you, if I'm an LSU fan and with Frank hearing that, and that game being played at Jordan-Hare, I'd be horrified.
I've seen too many of these end that way. I'm not believing any of this social media. Yeah, I'm not. No, let me tell you something.
It better be 38-17, because if it's 21-17, hey, you might have just sent a few thousand LSU fans that were on the way to Auburn right back to Cajun land, man.
hey, look, in this series, Jimmy, you get a 1-point lead and you get the hell out of town as fast as you can.
That's right.
I'll tell you this, referring back to the 2015 game, I think it was 2015 in Death Valley, I told Duff that I've got my official referee's whistle that I'll have with me in the south end zone, and I'm going to look for an opportune time to foul up Jaden Daniels at QB.
And with some of the officiating we've seen the last couple of years, I've found myself waxing poetic for the return of the likes of Penn Wagers and some of those guys, But anyway, no, Brian Kelly, I mean, this is a guy that, for the caliber of coach that he is, a lot of people don't know much about him. I mean, he won multiple national championships at the Division II level at Grand Valley State. And I mean, he was there for a long time. And then he went to Central Michigan and, won a MAC title there, where that doesn't happen. And then he went to Cincinnati, did a great job there, got them to the Sugar Bowl. And in both places, he cleared the way. He did all the dirty work to where Butch Jones could come in at both places, and all he had to worry about is just coaching, because Kelly had done all the recruiting and done all the all the hard work to turn things around. And then Rob, I, and Frank Duffy.
Yeah, it's his nephew.
Hey, that's a good last name to be associated with, though. But we were talking about possible candidates at LSU, and it was the day before it happened. I was actually in Sylacauga, Alabama that day, and I said the one guy that worries me as an Alabama fan is Brian Kelly. And lo and behold, the next day he gets announced as the LSU coach. And what was so kind of strange about it was it kind of happened out of nowhere. The whole thing developed maybe within a less than 24-hour period, when he got contacted and that type of thing. And it was just lightning fast how it developed. But yeah, he is the type of guy, and you can just see in 4 games where he has turned that program around, and especially in the Mississippi State game, where they had no problem playing hard-nosed, smash-mouth football.
Yeah.
And he is a guy that, in the term of coaching vocabulary, he coaches hard.
Yeah.
And he gets these guys to respond. And it's not like we saw the last couple of years where players would make a really egregious mistake and just, jog back to the sideline. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, Bo, along that lines, you're looking at the big picture from out in Texas. And you're seeing Texas. They lost in overtime last week at Texas Tech. Oklahoma gets beat by Kansas State. They play some good football in the Big 12. Again, I'm asking, are you hearing any movement about adding teams to the Big 12? We already know who's coming in, and mountain bike sales have gone up dramatically with all those Mormons coming in. White polyester shirts and clip-on ties and birth control glasses are the rage in Dallas.
Right. No, when I'm about a month ago, they were saying the Big 12 had preliminary talks with Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, and now their reports are that the Pac-12 has really gone back out. The Big 12 and the Pac-12 are negotiating their TV rights at the same time, and the Pac-12 supposedly has jumped in with Amazon pretty heavily, so on possible video streaming, et cetera, and a big lucrative money deal there. So I think the 4 that were thinking about defecting are having second thoughts. So it's a 3-ring circus with the elephants loose.
Yeah, Bo, can you confirm? Frank was telling me this during the break. The Pac-12 is circling the drain. Their TV rights are going to go to Wayne's World in Aurora, Illinois. Wayne's World. They're going to start showing Pac-12 on public access TV. Can you confirm or deny that?
Yeah, but the weird, strangest thing, George Klobuchar.
We are not worthy.
Yeah, they're leading a charge now with the University of California Regent system, which UCLA is under that, Berkeley and all those schools, and they're saying that they're going to, take legal action or force UCLA to say that UCLA did not consult the Board of Regents before it happened or whatever. So I don't know. It's the lawyers are going to be making a lot of money out of this thing before it's all over, I think.
Bo, Doug Dean again, before we go to break in a second. Do you think this is unanswerable, but that's why we're doing the show. You have opinions anyway. But do you think that the SEC, have we possibly gone too far adding powerhouses, blue bloods like Oklahoma and Texas? And are we going to just cannibalize ourselves, or will it, then people thought that with the SEC championship game, no, we'll never get to the title game, and the opposite happened. Do you think this just adds up to more strength and dominance, or is it going to tend to dilute opportunities for the bottom half of the SEC?
No, I don't think so. And we were laughing. Texas, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt will all cash the same checks at the end of the year. So they're really happy about that. But no, it gives. They're going to help the television ratings. You've got the Dallas-Fort Worth, Houston media market with Texas being there. Oklahoma's reputation is just so tremendous, except for some of the NCAA problems. But I think those two teams are going to strengthen the league, and you've got the perfect mix with 16 teams right now.
Bo, I tell you, a guy I'd love to have on the show is Barry Switzer. I bet Barry Switzer Brian Bosworth is another one I'd love to have on Sidelines, just to get that Sooner perspective. And we're going to go to a break. We're going to come back with you. And then Ken Capps will be joining us from the State Fair. He said he's working on his third funnel cake before he comes on with us. He may be in a sugar coma, but we'll be back with more live from Lake Martin, Alabama, Sidelines after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
We got a Carl. How are you? I kind of want some other good to eat in there. Mm-hmm. I reckon I'm listening to that feller Bo Carter out there. Mm-hmm. I reckon I got no reason to get Bo, but Bo, I was wanting to ask you a question and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Reckon what you like good to eat out there at that Texas State Fair. Mm-hmm. They got any French fried potatoes out there.
Yeah.
How much you want for them?
We've got fried cream cheese, fried biscuits, whatever, anything fried is available.
Like Bo, Ken Capps texted me and was sending me some stuff last night. He goes, "I'll be at the State Fair in 8 days, OU in Texas." This will be his 39th straight game to be there for Texas and OU. You know, again, over here east of the Mississippi, and y'all are out there, and I've been out to Texas a number of times. How big a deal is it going to be when the Longhorns come into the conference? And I think a lot of people were cashing checks before they'd made the sales, thinking Alabama was going to go out there and just win by 50. And Nick Saban kept saying, this is going to be a tough game. You know, Sarkisian was on his staff. He knew him, but then they go out there and they lose, in overtime to Texas Tech last week. But I just think Texas, when that brand, which is the most valuable brand in the SEC at $1,108,000,000, according to the Wall Street Journal, when you get that thing going, I mean, that's like the Santa Ana winds in California, blowing in the fall. It's going to be crazy, isn't it?
Yes, they're not. Sarkisian said on a talk show this week, he said, "We're not dead. People have written us off or whatever, and they're like 5 points away from being undefeated right now." A real big key for them is Gary Patterson, the former TCU head coach, who's now the defensive analyst down there. And I saw him. Saban shook hands after the Texas, Alabama game, and they sort of, Saban said, "Boy, you did a heck of a job." You could read his lips a little bit. He was really impressed with how much they improved. And down the road, I think that might make a difference this year for Texas. They're not out of the Big 12 race, but they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, they are. And, you think about Gary Patterson. He understands how life is. They erected a statue of him out in front of Amon G. Carter Stadium in Fort Worth. And then they fire him.
Yes.
I mean, remember Mike Godfrey, former coach at Pitt, was speaking at the Touchdown Club in Memphis one time. And he said, "I had a great season at Pitt. They gave me a lifetime contract and fired me a year later. But I was he goes, but I was still alive." And
yes,
it's just the nature of it now. And let's switch up to Oklahoma. And you've been to Norman to a lot of games. Oklahoma, the passion of the Sooner Nation. Holy cow. But I hate that Bedlam is a casualty of this. You love in-state rivalries, but they're going to be okay in Norman. And how excited are they to be coming in to this league? They just get on I-40 and head east, and they can get all the fights they want.
You're exactly right. And OU's very familiar, playing bowl games against Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn. They've met just about every team in the SEC. In fact, poor old Vanderbilt went out there about 40 years ago and lost on a controversial fumble call late in the game. So it's honestly too, and you hit the nail on the head, Jimmy. Oklahoma and Texas are going to have to step it up a notch. There's not really it used to be Kansas, but all of a sudden they've resurged this year. But there's not really a weak sister that they can play in the SEC. Maybe one or two in off years, but they've got to strap on the helmet a little tighter every week.
Frank Duffy here. How do you see the recruiting with the inclusion of Texas now, having to go back in that rivalry with Texas A&M and the recruiting wars? My LSU Tigers go into Texas quite a bit. So how do you see the inclusion of Texas in the SEC and what it's going to do, with that high school recruiting in the Lone Star State, which is some of the best in the country?
Oh, you're saying, it's been picked over for years and years. Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State, really, for that matter, I think you have between 30 and 40 Texas kids on their rosters, and they're not that far from the line over here. And Texas obviously has the verbal commitment from Arch Manning and New Orleans. They've hit Louisiana hard a few times or whatever. And I guess just both of them have such a national recruiting base. I don't think it's going to really affect their own. But you're going to have other kids going to SEC schools that say, hey, well, my parents get to see me play at Texas and Oklahoma either every year or every other year, and we'd like to keep it in the family out here.
Bo, in a given year, 15-20% of the starting quarterbacks at Division I schools are Texas high school products. My wife is a binge watching junkie on Netflix. Last year we watched Friday Night Lights, man. Holy cow, QB1. And our friend Olin Buchanan, Texags.com, comes on the show, and love him. Talks about being from White Oak, Texas. Population, 2,500. Stadium capacity, 5,000.
You're probably you're familiar with Russellville, Alabama, Rob. At one time it's grown a little bit now. It's a big chicken farming area up in Northwest. But the town was like 4,500, and their stadium seated 9,000 people. So they won 48 games in succession in the 70s. So they're pretty much have a loyal fan base. But no, you're right. It is gigantic. By the way, I saw Olin at the Arkansas Texas A&M game. He sends his regards or whatever. But
we love that guy.
And they do have that, about 20 years ago, they started the 7-on-7 summer competition, and it really got the Texas high school coaches thinking about more of a pro style, not quite air raid, but more of a pro style offense where a lot of them are running wishbone and the beer and power eye or whatever. And it's opened up a ton of opportunities for these quarterbacks.
Well, I think one of the casualties of all the hurry up, no huddle and the 7-on-7s is the lack of development of offensive linemen. I mean, Jimmy's chronicled this very well. The last 15, 16 years, Texas has had maybe one first-round draft pick on the offensive line. You go back in the past, it wasn't like that, And when Ken Capps gets on here, I mean, it's going to be like having Flatt and Scruggs talking about Texas. But everybody comes into Texas. Everybody wants to recruit Texas. And high school football, Tommy Tuberville told me 2010, 11, and 12, his 3 years at Texas Tech, that one of the things about these kids that come out of the Texas high schools is they've been developed and weight training and stuff from such a young age that a lot of these kids are kind of tapped out when they get there, and you've got to re-energize them. And that's a big issue for the number one state in America, 400 D1 players a year. I'm sure they'll adapt. That's what we do. Improvise, adapt, overcome. Thank you, Heartbreak Ridge, Clint Eastwood. And then push through and execute, won't we?
Yes, just like you're saying, a lot of this stuff is very cyclical or whatever too. And I always love, on a similar note, I always love to watch the service academies play well because they nobody can prepare for them. They're running the wishbone or the triple option. the DBs, those guys, and they can do it with 240-pound linemen or whatever too, unlike the behemoths that are around here or whatever too. But the one thing that makes it even tougher with like speaking of linemen and passing offenses, you could call holding, and Mr. Duffy and and Mr. Dean have talked about this. You could call holding just about every play, so it makes really tough games to officiate too.
Bo, Doug Dean again, and I'm going to probably ask the same question of the next guest coming up, but squint your eyes and give us a forecast of what the expanded college football playoff will look like. That you hear talk of 8 teams. I think 12. The reason I want 12 is I have enough of a romantic. I'd like the little guys some years to have a shot to get in there, and they'll get sent home the first game, but it still makes for a good story. Your thoughts on where we're headed with the playoff?
Yes, I'm like you, Doug. It's fun to. The best part about it is watching the. Remember, like in the NCAA, Final Four in the Sweet 16, you get a Butler or Temple or St. Peter's or somebody running, sort of coming out of nowhere to pull it off. And I think Rob and I talked about this earlier too. The conference championship games are going to really take on extra value. I know the SEC, if they go to 12, would like to get 5 or 6 teams in every year, justifiably so, maybe. But if the conferences hold up the way they do, and that's a big if right now, you could take the 9 or 10 FBS conference champions and have 2 at-large teams. Plus, you've got on-campus playoff games, and that's going to really add a great element to it.
Hey, let me assure you guys that there's no way on earth that's going to happen, because the SEC, they didn't take Texas and Oklahoma with the idea that they were going to only have 2 teams in a 12-team playoff.
Yeah,
because
let's do this. Jimmy, Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America's on him. Ken, I know you're at the Texas State Fair, the aroma of funnel cakes and fried everything is in the air. And, Frank Duffy here with me, his first job out of college at LSU was guessing people's weight at the Texas State Fair.
By the way, he would have been well employed. I'd actually have taken that.
Well, I hope he's not guessing my weight.
I tell you what, you Bo Carter, Ken Capps. I said, when getting y'all 2 on the air together is like getting Flat and Scruggs together with a mason jar full of corn liquor.
Well, yeah, the fair opens up. It's opening day at the Great State Fair of Texas. It opens up at 10 o'clock. So I'm sitting here in my car, waiting for it to open up, because there's a big parade at noon through the middle of the fairgrounds, and I'm gonna be videotaping it and doing a story for Football Writers.
That is awesome. So you're in the shadow of Big Tex already, huh, brother?
You got it, brother.
That is awesome.
But most importantly, I'm in the shadow of the Great Cotton Bowl, where Texas and Oklahoma are going to hook it up next Saturday.
Yeah, one of the great traditions in college football for sure.
Ken, you got Grambling and Southern tomorrow in the whatever Southwest Classic that's been going on since 1926. So,
it's such a great
there.
game. Such a great game. But the best part of that game is halftime. Both of those fans are so awesome.
Yeah. Ken, one of the things about you and Bo Carter is y'all appreciate and you chronicle the college football games that make us love the sport. You write about what we don't know. You're just talking about that Grambling game. And I got a chance to meet Eddie Robinson's family, the late, great Eddie Robinson from Grambling, at the club in Birmingham back the first week of May at the Nick Saban Legacy Award dinner. Steve Spurrier was there. Archie Manning was there. Steve Melton was there. It was unbelievable. Steve Melnick was there. And Archie Manning got up there and talked. But what was cool was Eddie Robinson, what a class group of people. And I told him, I said, as a young kid in Memphis on Sunday mornings, I used to watch the Eddie Robinson football show on Sunday mornings. And they looked at me and said, "You kidding me?" I said, "No." And your grandfather would say, "Football is a great game. It teaches the lessons of life. You get knocked on your ass, you get back up and you keep fighting. But if you don't get up, you're done. And I'm done with you." I love that.
Well, yeah, and Rob, that's very apropos because here at Football Writers, our Coach of the Year award is named after Eddie Robinson. It's the Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year award.
Yeah, and what he did for college football, over 200 of his players played in the NFL. And Ken, you get, and I'm gonna let you and Bo just kind of flatten Scruggs, man. I'm getting out of the way, but y'all start telling some stories about college football, what you've seen in your careers. And for all those people that try to say the game is ruined, NIL, the portal, hell, man, in 1906, 19 players died in college football around the country. And there was a player in Georgia, and the Georgia state legislature and the governor had convened. They were talking about ending college football. The mother of the player who died spoke on the floor of the state house in Atlanta and pleaded for college football to go on. She said he wouldn't have wanted this, and we got through that. We've been through a lot, and what we're going through now is just one of many potholes in the road of life, isn't it?
Well, I asked Bo because he was around in 1906.
Teddy Roosevelt and I saved the game. Yeah.
I thought you were just going to go back to the Southwest Conference games. Man, you're really going back.
Well, think about the old Big 8 and the old Southwest Conference and the original SEC and all the great players that came out of those conferences and all the great coaches, and they are still legends that we look up to. And, where I really got a great taste of this again was at SEC Media Days, which was held this year in Atlanta at the College Football Hall of Fame. And it was so nice of the hall to give me a tour of the hall and show me all these things that, you got to be looking for to see. As an example, they have the first penalty flag that was ever thrown in college football. Okay. They have got all of these different Navy helmets from the Naval Academy that they have used over the years and the coaches have used over the years to motivate players. And you're thinking, where'd that come from? I didn't know that. Go look at their display. Go look it up online. And I mean, everything you can think of, the most minuscule things about college football that all of us that love college football, with our whole hearts, just eat up. I mean, I was just like a pig and, well, of course, you can't talk about pigs here at the state fair. They all get fried. But, I mean, I was just so happy. But here was the great part, guys, and I'll let Bo talk, but this was so great. The curator asked me, well, would you like to go in our storage facility? And I said, yeah, I'd really like to do that. And going in their storage facility, Rob, is like going in like the last scene of the Temple of Doom in Indiana Jones. They have got stuff as far as the eye can see. Jerseys, trophies, pennants. I mean, I wanted to take all this stuff home, and they've got the original Liberty Bowl bell. Okay, I rang the original Liberty
Ken,
Bowl
hold those
bell.
thoughts. Hold those thoughts, if you will. We're going to take a quick break. I want to come back because that College Football Hall of Fame, it's a definite, you better go see it. We'll be right back with more Sidelines after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne back here from beautiful Lake Martin down here in Alabama. It is weed eating time. The neighbors next door, Fred G and the boys, it's getting to be wild out here, man. Ken Capps, Bo Carter out in Texas, two great football writers. Ken with the Football Writers Association of America, Bo Carter, the College Football Foundation, also baseball writers. Man, you talk about a resume that is strong. As a guy, I'm telling you, one of the great lines I ever heard was down on 30A one time about Beer 30 one afternoon. There were a bunch of Aggies up there at the place we were staying on the beach, and this guy goes, I'm going to tell you what, man, I was out there looking at them ladies walking up and down the beach. By God, they stronger than 50 acres of fresh cut onions.
Hey, Ken, this is Doug Dean, and I apologize to the listening audience for the not so ambient weed eater and blower noise in the background. That our idea for a Lake Martin backdrop worked well until the lawn company showed up. But my question, Ken, is I'm a fan of the great Westerns that many of which were set in the Lone Star State. And it's as if over the last 30 years or so, the Southwest Conference, if they were starring in a Western, you might have a scene where they say, all right, bring the women and children in here. The Southeastern Conference is coming, and hide them. And so we have rated that conference. We'll make no apologies, I guess. But my question is that the people that are long enough in the tooth to remember the heyday, the great days of the Southwest Conference, Arkansas, Texas, and others. Is there a nostalgia for that, or have they embraced kind of the bold new world and all of this realignment?
And remember, the statute of limitations has run out on this, so you can speak freely.
Well, I tell you, there are still a lot of people that wish the old Southwest Conference was still together. And think about it. If you got everybody together, it'd be a hell of a conference. You'd have Arkansas back. You'd have A&M back. You would have Houston back. You would have SMU back. Rice, okay. But it would be a heck of a strong conference. And but the story that I always like to hear the football writers tell are the old days when they would do a Southwest Conference media tour, and they would do it on a bus, and they would go around on a bus. Can you imagine a busload of 40, 50 sports writers and photographers, and they just get on this bus and go to Austin, Houston, Aggieland, Waco, Dallas, Fort Worth, and then they fly to Lubbock because Lubbock is too far to get, to take a bus and to Texas Tech. But I mean, when they tell those stories, I mean, I just wish I'd have been there.
Well, we had a guest on, Philip Marshall. We love Philip Marshall, longtime writer. His father, Benny Marshall, legendary editor of the Birmingham News, sports writer, talked about Buddy Martin down in Gainesville or Ocala, a great sports writer, Franz Beard. Talk about the old Skywriters tour in the SEC, coming in on that DC-10 and barely landing. And they said somebody was wanting to write a book about the experiences on the tour, what went on. And he said we were all passing the hat around to give him enough money to not write that book.
Yeah, exactly. And you had people on that tour, like the great Blackie Sherrod, Dan Jenkins. I mean, just amazing, legendary writers that we still read today. And man, I mean, I just really think that would have been so cool to read. And I was a kid at that time, growing up in Austin, Texas. And I remember reading those reports because some of those reports is what got me into the business. I thought I need to get into this business and write about this college football. I love it so much.
Well, to say that it was the wild, wild west literally out there is an understatement. Jimmy, you spent a lot of time out in Texas, out on those roads in West Texas when you were in your Adidas days. What are your memories of the Southwest Conference? Because I'm sure you got some good ones too.
Well, the great ones were during those early 80s, the SMU days. That was the Wild Wild West. My favorite story was that about a week before that February signing date, the national signing day, A&M had given Eric Dickerson a brand new Cadillac. And Eric was from Sealy, which was literally a stone's throw from College Station in Texas terms, maybe 45 minutes or something like that. And then when Eric changed his mind at the last minute to go to SMU, there was no way the A&M alumni could do anything, you know. So Eric was in pretty good shape there, you know. But when you had the governor involved, Clements, who was an SMU graduate, I mean, it doesn't get any higher up than that.
They just had to take it to Earl Scheib and get that blue and red painted on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, hey, you know what, guys? Just a few weeks ago, just so you know, the statute of limitations is up on this stuff. Eric Dickerson did admit that he got a gold Trans Am from SMU.
Well, and you look, Ken, at college football. Again, we had Vern Lundquist on the show with us Tuesday. That was a lot of fun. He talked about Blackie Sherrod, these great sports writers. And I remember when I was, a freshman at Auburn, I got to work in sports information with Buddy Davidson, David Housel, Reba Gulledge. And one afternoon, great sports writer, y'all probably remember him, Furman Bisher, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Furman Bisher's in there in a blue V-neck sweater, always dressed to kill, North Carolina grad. And David Housel and him were having this discussion about Jim Bob Harris, Alabama defensive back from Athens, Georgia, and Bob Harris, Auburn defensive back from Southwest Decatur, Georgia High School, also the hometown of legendary coach and AD at Arkansas, Frank Big Daddy Broyles. And it was a discussion about, Furman, you know damn well if Bob Harris was wearing that crimson jersey, he'd be on the first team All-American team. He's a better player than Jim Bob Harris, not disrespecting him, but he's better. And to hear those two minds talk would have been like having a beer listening to Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle debate something. It was incredible.
And you can bet it was over pimento cheese sandwiches and iced tea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right. I mean, but Ken and Bo, just again, I like that term Jimmy used, wax eloquently, if you would, please, about some of your great memories of college football, because y'all knew Bud Ford and Haywood Harris at Tennessee, I'm sure. And Bob Kessling, the voice of the Tennessee Volunteers, longtime member of the Tennessee Vol Football Network, told us, Haywood Harris said to him one time, he said, Bob, great thing about college football is tradition never graduates. And right before, when John Ward would be saying, and this crowd is just rising to their feet, this ruckus crowd, 102,000 plus on the banks of the Tennessee River, the Vol Navy at full gun salute. In a moment, the Pride of the Southland marching band will come out and form that giant T. And then the Volunteers will run onto the field, and here they come. And no matter where you are, from Memphis to Johnson City and the Smoky Mountains, it is football time in Tennessee. It just doesn't get any better than college football. But Ken,
remember,
I'm gonna let y'all
remember the 1969 game between Texas and Arkansas in Vietnam.
Yep.
Was deemed the game of the century.
Yeah.
And listen how this game ends. I'm sure you've seen it, but this would never happen again. Darrell Royal and Frank Broyles are great friends. They're golfing buddies, and they were golfing buddies still after they both retired in the mid 70s. Anyway, Texas beats Arkansas 15-14 in the last minutes of the game, and when Texas wins, the two coaches, not only shake hands, but they walk off the field together with their arms around each other. Now that's some class and sportsmanship, my fine friends.
Let me ask y'all this, Bo and Ken. Did either one of y'all ever get to cover an Ole Miss game when Johnny Vaught was there?
Oh yeah. Kind of, sort of. Remember he came back in '70 that one year when they fired the other one of the famous Ole Miss football brothers. Can you remember that story? A quick corollary. I know you're running up against the clock here, Rob. After the ball game, Joe Paterno raised Cain with everybody because President Nixon brought in this thing that he called the national championship trophy and presented it to Texas in the locker room.
That's right.
Paterno saying, "Hey, what about?"
Wow.
Ken and I at the same time. So Ken remembers that well. They always claim they got squelched out of the trophy because of President Nixon and Billy Graham being at the game of the century that year.
Well, and you know what's funny about that, guys, is that they acquiesced. The White House acquiesced and actually made Penn State another trophy, kind of like a participation trophy to kind of appease Joe Pop.
Hey, I'll tell you what, the two greatest coaches, Hank Stram, Johnny Vaught, are in the Hairpiece Hall of Fame too.
There you go.
Hey, I'll tell you, Johnny Vaught, 196 victories, 6 SEC titles, 3 national championships, and he just had a assembly line of great quarterbacks like Charlie Connerly from down in the Delta in Clarksdale. And you just think about where that all started and look where we are today. Tradition, when you're struggling, when things are not going well, you can always tap into that memory bank. It's like a savings account, isn't it?
Well, hey, exactly. And let me. I want to talk to you a little bit about the Southwest Conference. Here's a blast from the past. Let's talk about the 1990 Houston Cougars. Bill Yeoman was the coach. David Klingler was the quarterback. Andre Ware was another quarterback who won the Heisman, and they completely changed the way the Southwest Conference played football. You know, it was an old running, wishbone, grind it out kind of conference. Houston gets in there, it starts airing it out, and that's where all that came from, the run and shoot, Mike Leach, etc. And I remember, when Houston came in there and, people were like, I can't believe we're letting those guys in the Southwest Conference. They changed the whole dynamic of the place.
Gentlemen, Doug Dean again. One of the things Frank Duffy and I, and my new compadre, who's making me have a soft place in my heart for LSU fans, if he, to the extent he's representative of their fan base at large, I'm not sure that would be the case. But if there's any series anywhere in the country that can stake a claim on freaking weirdness of games, we burned down buildings during the game with their earthquakes registering on the Richter scale, and I could go on. But what occurred to me is that's underrated is some of the funny things, not just the drama of final play victories and that happened during the game, but just the humor. And I stumbled across, probably not new to you guys, but the great Jack Crystal, announcer for so long at Mississippi State. They were sponsored by Sonic drive-through, and Mississippi State had a characteristically bad outing that day. I hate to be unkind, but factual. And toward the end, they were required, Crystal was, to call the drive of the game. What was the drive of? And he scratched his head and with great candor said, well, I'll have to call the drive of the game is going to be when I get in my car and drive home tonight.
That's true. That's a true story.
Hey, Bo Carter, you knew Jack Crystal, 58 years, the voice of Mississippi State University, Bulldogs, and I want to say hello to our sponsors like Ayoops on the Square in Canton, Mississippi. You remember Ayoops on the Square, don't you, Bo?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And, Jack's, I know, again, real quickly, Jack loved the old 1930s and 40s announcers. Ken can identify. He wasn't around them, but he can
he wasn't.
They would be in the middle of a fight, and Bill Stern would say, he threw a right hand with the speed of a Buick, sort of getting the sponsors in there.
You remember?
At every time. The IU Blazers, man, they got mentioned about 20 times a game.
Yeah.
So,
well,
Great stuff.
Bo, what I love, and Ken and Jimmy and everybody, what I love about Jack Crystal, he'd go, want to say hello to our visitors from the loveliest village on the plains as we get ready for this contest, this 83rd meeting between Mississippi State and Auburn Tigers. There's movement in the aisles here in Starkville and Starkville, Mississippi. Let's wrap this one in maroon and white. I mean, you can't, but you know what I love about, I'll tell you what I love about Jack Crystal. When he retired, he did his victory tour. And you just remember what he said. He goes, I want to say I've been blessed to have the greatest job in the world for the last 58 years calling Mississippi State University ball games. And I'm the proud son of two Jewish immigrants from Latvia and Lithuania who came to this country with the clothes on their back. And I have lived the greatest life a man could ever dream of. And I live in the greatest country in the world. There's no question about it. Thank you and God bless you. I mean, what a great guy. And that's what we love about college sports.
How do you top that?
Yeah. How do you I mean, he was just that cool of a guy. And you think about it, Ken, you and Bo on here, and Jimmy, Frank, and Doug. This is, again, we got Flat and Scruggs with Bo Carter and Ken Capps, and just letting y'all tell these stories. We're going to do this again next week. And I'll tell you this, as college football, I believe the fans, Buddy Martin's right. Who owns college football? Who that? It's the fans. To borrow the great one from the Saints. The fans own it, but the great writers, I respect so much what you do, Ken and Bo, true grit journalism, reading your stories and other great writers who bust their butt, go out and get the stories, is like lifting weights with your brain. Yeah, the great ones. So I hope y'all will write a book about your experiences, because we need these stories to be told and passed, as David Hauser would say, down through the years. We never forget. Men come and go, but their legacies, their relationships, their stories live on forever. And that's the great thing about it. Look, we have run out of time. Carol Burnett Show. I'm so glad we had this time together. I could fart in a bucket and sound better than me singing. But anyway, we'll be back tomorrow with you. Sidelines on Saturday, as we are every Monday through Saturday, or as they say in the South, Monday through Saturday. We'll be back with you tomorrow, 6 days a week, 680thefan.com, Podcast Park in Atlanta, Kicks 96.3, Alexander City, Lake Martin, where we are right now, the Radio Alabama group, www.live. Say your prayers for those people down in Florida and in the path of that hurricane. If you know our listeners and in the Carolinas of ways we can help, put the message out. We will broadcast it on our show. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and give with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Give out of the goodness of your heart. We're out of here. See you tomorrow. Thank you.